Good morning, students. Today's lecture is the specialized process model, under which we have a software development model that is a component-based system. The component-based system, in briefly, I will explain what a component is. That when we develop a software, we develop the modules of that software and integrate all the modules. So later on, maybe in future again, we get some related project development project and model, or you can say we got more project over there related to a previous project. Then we use the previous models that we already developed over there and integrate the previous model with the new models. So the previous model that we have already saved for our future use, we call it as components, and we integrate with them the newly developed modules. We also call that components. So component-based system means that whatever work we have done, whatever modules we have already developed and stored in our system, and we can use it later on with the new projects. That is a component-based system in a briefly manner. So what is specialized process model? Specialized process model take on many of its characteristics of one or more of traditional models that we have discussed so far. So specialized process model take the features of waterfall model, prototype model, rapid application model, and spiral model. And specialized process model define a distinct set of activities. The activities are communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. So whenever we go for modeling of a special model, we always go for communication with the customer, planning how to develop our project, modeling how to construct our software project, and start constructing means start coding the software, and deployment means transfer our software to the customer for the use. So what actions are required during this process modeling? That is the requirement gathering. Requirement gathering always be done by discussing with the you can say our customer or end user. Then ER diagram or DFT are used for the designing of the software or project, and type of testing. Various testing are being done to check whether that whatever we have designed so far giving us the correct results as per the customer requirements. So various tasks that are to be performed, that is again planning, analysis, design, and testing. So again, plan how to construct, how many price it will take to construct our software or a project, how much cost it will take, how many people we required, how much hardware software requirements will be used to develop the software. Analysis, again in the analysis, we will check that again how much time, how much cost it will take to design the software. Uh, then design, again construct a design using ER diagram, DFT, flowchart, you can say the algorithms, and testing. Various testing are performed at the development end as well as at the user end, whether the software is giving the correct answer as per the customer requirement. Then milestone, a specific point in time within a project life cycle used to measure the progress of the project towards its ultimate goal. So milestone means whenever we start developing our software, let's say our software will take, or our project will take 5 months. So after every 1 month, we'll check the progress of our software. So it means after first month, second month, third month, and fourth month, and fifth month, it will file five milestones are there, under which we keep on checking and discussing the improvement in our software, or how much time it will how much work is being done in that particular time, and how much cost is being spent on that particular time. So that are the milestones. Work product, that's the tangible or intangible objects like paper, notes, SRS, document, software, program documentation, audio, recording, etc. So these are all the work that is being done during the development of the project, and that are required to develop a high quality software. So these are some of the specific set of sets that are being used for development of the software. So component-based system is one of the specialized process model in software engineering. Uh, so under the specialized process model, the model that we are going to discuss is the component-based system. So component-based system is one of specialized process model that we will discuss as per the syllabus of your DCA. So what is a component-based system is? Component-based system, or you can say components-based development, is a software system development methodology where system is developed using reusable software components. So what is reusable? That maybe in past we have developed some software, and while developing the software we have developed various modules, and we call that modules as a component, and that modules that we have developed in the last project can be used in the current project also. It means the component based development is a system development methodology where the system is developed using the reusable software component. Reusable means that the modules that we have developed in the previous project, so we can again use them. If I say that we again use them, we call it as reusable, and that term is also known as commercial of the shelf, that is COTS. Component-based development aims at improving the efficiency, performance, quality of the system by recycling components. So whenever we use the term as reusable software, it means that we are using the thing that is already being developed in the last project. It means the development time reduced, the development cost reduced. So it means the effort reduced. It means if something get reduced, it means you get the good result of that. Fine. It means that it's improved the efficiency of software because we already have developed the thing, and we can give more, you can say, time on the new modules that we have to develop and integrate the new module with the previous modules. And with that, if we get more time, it means we get more good results, good performance, and quality of the system for recycling components. So this is what the component based system is. So definition of the component-based system is that component-based system is a process of building a system which consists of following activities. What activities? Searching and identifying the component based on starting of that project development, then selecting the component based on the customer or end user requirements, integrating and assembling the selected components, and updating the system as component involved over time with the newer versions. So so as per the definition, so various activities that have to be performed in component-based system are the searching and identify the components. Whenever we develop a new project or new software, we always keep on searching the previous modules that are being used in the current project or software development. So we have to find or search the various modules and identify the which module is perfect for our current project. So once we select the particular module that were previously developed, then after selecting that module, we have to check whether that all modules are as per the customer requirement or not. So if the module or component is as per the software requirement, we will keep it, and else if the module or component is not as per customer requirement, we will reject it. So once we select the components that are as per the customer requirement, after selecting the component, we will integrate all the components in one particular component so that it will be easy for us to integrate or assemble with the newly developed components. And finally, we keep on updating the components because every software keep on changing or new additional things are being added to it. If new things are being added to it, we call it as a evolution of that software or project. So updating the system as a component evolve over time to time with new versions. So we have to keep on changing the components as per the requirement or as per the new technology evolving in the market. That's why we have to always make evolution in our software or in our project. So during the component-based system, various phases has to be done for the development. That is the requirement analysis. Always have to done. That is, we have to make a communication with our customer and collect the requirement analysis of what the customer require for the from the software that we have to develop. Then component analysis, design, and architecture. Then we have to analyze what previous component that we have to need for the development of the current software, and we have to make a design of all the component, how to integrate them, and that design will be defined in terms of architecture, how that we integrate all the previous component together and further integrate with the new components. Component identification and customization. Then we have to develop the new components that are not previously, you can say, you can develop in our previous project that we have developed in the current project. So we have to identify which new component we have to develop as per the requirement of the customer, and system integration, that we have to integrate the current components that we have developed and the previous component that we have integrated as a new component. So all the current components and the previous component are being get integrated together to for the current project or software. And after integration of all the components, we will go for the testing of the software or the project, whether it is giving the correct result as per the user requirement. So this testing can be done in both in the development end as well as in the user end also. So these are the various phases of the component-based system. So what is the requirement analysis in the component-based system? So requirement analysis include valuable and non-valuable requirements. The requirement analysis is used to conduct the component searching and evaluating the commercial of the shelf alternative with requirements. So it means that during the requirement analysis, we will check that what are the components that are already being developed by us during previous project development, and we evaluate which one is perfect for the customer requirement and select all that previous components which are applicable, or you can say feasible as per the customer requirement, and we call it as the commercial of the shelf. uh, it means that in on the shelf we have various components and we select that components that are as per requirement of the user. Then emphasis on gathering the external information based on the user requirement. It may possible that we have to collect some components from the outside company also, so we can collect that component from outer company also that can provide us the component, because your component is totally as per the requirement of our user. So the requirement should be systematically partitioned into collection of domain defined requirements. So all the components or requirements should be collected as per the domain of it. It means that what is the meaning of domain? That if we, let's say we talk about results, then all the component that perform operation regarding the results, then they are in one domain. That domain is result. And let's say all the component or all the modules that are performing some operation on the fee of a student, then we call at one domain as fee, and all that component are being stored in that particular domain. And let's say if we talk about the student you can say performance, then all the you can say uh, result, or you can say the attendance, fine, all that come under the category of the student performance, how students performing, feedback you can say also over there, mentors record also come under the student performance, through which we can collect all the information regarding the performance of the student. So three modules are there, or you can say three domains are there: result, fee, and student. You can say uh, you can say what how the student performance. Student performance is the third domain over there. So we collect the you can say component at first the requirement of the domain. So this is important to support the early identification of costs is the commercial of the shelf components for evaluation, as well as early identification of subsystem that cannot be supported by cost component. So it is important to support that in the early stage we identify that which component are useful for the development and which are not useful in the development of the software. So So in the requirement analysis, we have make the different domains so that whenever required any component related to any topic, any domain, we can just select that particular component from that domain only and relieving other two domains. If let's say if we want some component regarding the fees, then we will just search in the domain that is fee domain, and need not to search in the student performance and result domains, so that are being as such, and we will only search in the fee domain, and it will take less time to find out the components as per our requirement. So second is the component analysis, design, and architecture. The objective of the second phase is to develop an appropriate architecture for an easy communication among the components according to user requirements. As we have to integrate the already previous developed components with the new system, it means we have to check how we will integrate, how we will connect the previous component with the new system. So to that integration, or you can say collecting the previous and current components together, we have to make an architecture of it. So that proper designing has to be done to develop the architecture. So that designing will tell us how the previous component will collect to the current project. During the analysis, decisions are performed about the structure of the component, interface, and relationship of the system components. So in the architecture, we will make analysis on the decisions about the how the component will perform when then the component will integrate together or start uh, interface and you can say communicate with each other. Interface means they start communicating with each other and they give some input and collecting some output from other component, and they make some relationship with the components. You can say previous component and the current component have some relationship, or it might be possible that the previous components have some relationship among themselves also. So we have to define all these things in the architecture of the system, that how what are the various components that are being used for the current you can say software or project, and how many are the previous component and how many are the new components. What is the relationship or interface among the previous to new components, or what is the relation or interface among the previous component in itself, and what is the you can say communication and interface among the current components. So we have to explain all this in the architecture of the component. The design of the system must ensure that the risk associated with the system are acceptable. So whenever we design a new thing, definitely the risk always running parallel to us. So we have to take it into mind that whatever thing we are developing, the risk factor is there, that it might be give some error at any time, and we should be ready that how to remove that risk. Fine. So whenever you are ready to remove the risk, it's easy to develop a software. And when you get fumbled that some risk occurs, then it is difficult for you to develop a project. It means whenever the software developer or software manager is developing a project or software, it has a capability to remove the risk. Fine. So the system must ensure the risk associated with the system are acceptable, that the system developer is ready. Whatever risk will come during the development, I will remove it. The design risk can be avoided by means of replacement, sweeping statement, decoupling, or modularization. So during the development, if any risk occurs, we can replace the component with some other components. So with sweeping, we can make interface so that of that component with other component. By decoupling, we can you can say the components that were earlier integrated, we can remove that integration and make some other component together to make a modulation among the components. So this is how we can develop the architecture of the component. So after design and architecture, next is the component identification and customization. So component identification defines the goals by selecting the right component in accordance to the requirement of both the functionality and reliability. So as I told you earlier that the selection of the component is as per the requirement of the customer. So whatever the customer has told us during the requirement analysis, what are the requirement of the customer is. So on the basis of the requirement, we will select the components. So component identification stage includes the process of collecting information by codes component and grouping these component into different combination or sets for further evaluation. So once we select the various component or identify which components are as per user requirements, once we select all that components, then we integrate all the components together and how they will you can say interface or communicate with each other. So we have to mention that what will the combination, different combination we can set, that how the components will integrate or communicate with themselves. So customization is a process to modify the component for specific requirement, doing necessary changes to run the component on a special platform, and upgrading the specific component to get better performance and higher quality. So customization means that once we have done the integration or that how they will communicate among each other, we can make changes in that also. In that, changes can be done as per the requirement of the, you can say, customer, or as per the requirement of the developer. So on the basis of requirement of developer or customer, we can make some changes in that components also to get the better results. So by making that changes in the component, previous components, we call it as a customization. That customization is means to make some changes in the components and integration of the components as per the requirements of the customer and as per the conditions of the software developer. Each commercial of the shelf component need to be evaluated to determine its fitness for the intended purpose. So once we have selected the component as per the requirement of the user, then we'll check that what type of result that component will give to us, and we will evaluate that how much percent that component is useful to us, and determine whether that component is fit for the development of current project or software or not. So so it means we have to evaluate the, you can say, importance of that component, and determine whether that on the basis of component, that component is feasible for our project, current project or not. So various technique that used to customize the component are waterfall with unfamiliar chords components, waterfall with familiar chords components, incremental and prototype with familiar chord components, and incremental and prototype with familiar chord components. It means there are some component that we are already know about all these things, and there might be some components that we have not that much good knowledge about that. So we can, you can say, customize that for using waterfall model. All the process of waterfall model can be done in it. That is the requirement analysis, and then we go for the design, then we go for coding and testing. All the other process will go in the component that we are familiar with and the component that we are unfamiliar with. And increment and prototype model means that since we have not good knowledge about the components, so we can design a prototype and check whether the prototype is giving a good result or not. If it is giving a good result, then fine. If it is not giving a good result, it means again we have to make some changes in the prototype and develop a new prototype over there, and find out that whether the prototype is giving the good results as per the requirement of not or not. It means the selection or the customization of the components can be done in two ways. First, the components are familiar to us, and the components are not familiar to us. And how the customization can be done? That can be done either by the waterfall model or can be done by the prototype model. So waterfall model means that we are having good knowledge of the requirements, and prototype means we are not having that much good knowledge of the requirements of that software. So on the basis of this, we can customize the component for the current project. Finally, next is the system integration. The integration of component is done at the corresponding sub level of system. After proper designing and implementation of architecture structure can be generated by performing the system integration. And system integration is a process to merge the implementation of selected components which are retrieved from the repository according to system architecture. So what is a system integration means? Whatever the component we have selected as per the requirement, whatever the component we identifies as per the customer requirement. Now next is that we have to integrate all that the previous component or old components together, and we have to integrate all that previous component with the current system component also, and find that what is the best method to get the good result, and that can be used by the help of that architecture that we have designed. So as for the architecture, we start integrating the component in the system, and we call it as a system component. And after the integration of the system component, the final process is that system testing. The testing occur when codes component is chosen and need to be repeated for each new version or release. Now we test whether the component that we have integrated are giving the good results, and if they are not giving good result or some changes are there in the, you can say, customer requirements, then we make a new version of it. The developer need to make about the components, whether the component itself is reliable and operates as advertised, and whether the component being developed will accept the components. So we will check whether the component that are being integrated and they are operating properly as per the requirement, and whether the system that is being generated with the help of the component is being accepted, and all the components are being working properly and giving the proper result to the as per the customer requirement. So this is integration testing means and how we can go for it. So